Steve Cohen bringing the heat as we are heating up the stove. Anthony McCarron and Chris Lopresti are here with us now. And guys, it's not often you get that level of honesty from an owner. Anthony, what's your initial reaction to what Cohen had to say?
Well, as somebody who works in the media, Chelsea, I thought that was fantastic because it was so raw and honest there. And you can tell that he is bothered by the state of negotiations. And I'd like to remind Met fans that they all thought that was the guy who was going to ride in and save Pete as a Met going forward here, and saying overruling David Stern and saying, yeah, we need Pete, give him what he wants. That clearly is not going to happen. If Pete is a Met, it's going to be at the Mets price, and that only the Mets price. So look, I think we have to start really thinking seriously about life, beyond Pete here, CeeLo. And I still think they need another bat. But if it's going to be Pete, it's going to be at a Met number.
I agree with all that, and I think there was a little PR there from Cohen. And you've got the fan base in front of you. They're clamoring for Pete. The chants are there, and it's sort of a message of, well, look, here's all that we've done. So if it doesn't work out, don't hold it all at our feet. It's not all on us. And I do really believe at this stage some of this is some Scott Boras fatigue. He played nice through the Soto negotiations, which he referenced there in the clip that we heard. And I honestly think that's a lot of it. That's what this is about. Pete made the change to Boras. Boras has taken some L's in recent years on some of these contracts and these negotiations.
Pretty good track record as a whole, though.
Yes, but Pete specifically went to him for this free agency. So to come away with it where they'd almost have to kind of be going back to the Mets hat in hand, I can understand why they're looking elsewhere and having negotiations with other teams and maybe looking for a better option to get him paid. But I think Cohen has kind of run out of patience for the Scott Boras negotiation.
Yeah, you've got to respect Steve Cohen's transparency there, especially if you're a Mets fan. So what does Scott Boras think about Cohen's comments? Well, he had this to say to The Athletic's Will Salmon, quote, Pete's free agent contract structure requests are identical to the standards and practices of other clubs who have signed similarly situated qualifying offer/all-star level players. Nothing different, just established fairness standards. So no surprise that Boras is sticking to what he feels is in the best interest of his client Alonso and the Boras Corporation. So Anthony, how do you think having these comments out here for everyone to see and hear will affect these negotiations? Do you think there will be an impact?
Well, Chelsea, I found Scott Boras' comment interesting there because that's not really the point, that if it's fair and if it's what's been given back and forth with other teams in the context of how Steve Cohen is reacting to the negotiations, because it's obviously not working for the Mets. So now let's see how it goes forward. And look, everybody keeps, I have a feeling that there's a lot of Met fans out there who are like, oh, LOL, Pete, you're never going to get the contract you want. Come to us and we'll give you something. We'll throw you a bone and you can be on the Mets. And I don't think that Boras and Pete are going to play it that way. And why should they? He has earned the right to be in free agency. Anthony Santander got $92 million over 5 years. I think Pete's a better player than he is, a better power hitter. Look, there is still Steve Cohen said it, we're not closing the door on anything. Mm-hmm. So there is a pathway back to the Mets. It just feels like, I don't know if it hasn't happened yet. Is it going to happen? But he's still unsigned, so anything is possible, CeeLo.
Well, that's where I think some of the frustration comes in. And look, things happen last minute, close to spring training. We've seen it before. You saw it with J.D. Martinez last year. Different situation, not the same kind of contract we're talking about. And I get Boras' point and what he said and the structure of the deal. I think it's less about that, but the market is what it is. So you reference Santander, fair, but I think right now when you talk about first basemen and landing spots, there's not a lot of them. And yeah, we understand Steve Cohen's got a lot of money. He's clearly been willing to spend a lot of money, but that doesn't mean that he has to just open up the wallet. Oh, okay, well, I've got plenty of money to spend, so we'll just give you whatever you want. The Mets, I don't think, should have to bid against themselves. There are other teams involved, or at least it seems there are, so I get that standpoint. I think the frustration comes from maybe they're not getting a great feel for whether, does Pete really want to be here? Right. Are they using the Mets? Are they looking to go elsewhere? So I think that's where some of the frustration comes in. I do understand to a certain extent both sides, though.